Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here, coming at you from the Knife Center, and this is Beat the Icon, where we take a look at a classic knife, see if it can be beat. And you asked for it, we're doing it. It's the Benchmade 940. Can anything top this iconic knife? Considered by many to be the flagship of Benchmade's lineup, this is the 940 Osborne, designed by Warren Osborne. Introduced in the year 2000 at the Blade Show that year, and it's a formal knife, but it's also intended to be used hard. A unique combination, and its combination of features and the actual styling of the knife is something that few have been able to imitate over the years. Now, to really appreciate the 940, it helps to know a little bit about Warren Osborne himself. He's Australian, born on a working ranch, and he spent time working as a ranch hand and as a horse trainer once he moved to the United States. And he brought that kind of practical lived experience to his design language. His designs are practical, yet highly beautiful, and exquisitely refined in their fit and finish. Now, I think the most apparent place you'll see that experience in the design of the 940 itself is this blade shape right here. Now, they call it a reverse tanto. This is the knife that popularized that term. But if you look past kind of the fancy words, squint at it a little bit, there's a lot of spay blade in that shape right there. Similar to what you can see here on this Case Tony Bowes Stockman. Stockman pattern, of course, a classic hard-working rancher's knife if there ever was one. Now, the geometry of that blade is meant to work. That reverse tanto or whatever styling gives it a fairly strong tip because it's not getting super narrow right out there. Likewise, they've left enough thickness on the blade there to have some sturdiness and haven't given it a full flat grind, which might have sliced better, but we'll call it a 2/3 height flat grind there. Still maintains enough slicing capability while being nice and strong. But let's talk a little bit more about the knife itself now. This is the standard version. It's priced at about $216 right now. 3.4-inch reverse tanto or spay blade, whatever you want to call it. S30V steel with a stonewashed finish on the standard version with green aluminum handles. And this was true back in 2000 and even true today, where there's certainly more color available today on knives than there used to be, but still black-handled knives are the default across so many segments. And the green here really helped it stand out back in 2000 and still works its magic today. And the back of this knife features a ridged titanium backspacer, anodized purple in this case. At this point, it's just a classic combination. It might not be something you think would work on paper, but in hand, and over the last 20 plus years, it's certainly proven to be successful. The handles themselves are nice and narrow, just like the blade, which makes it an easy knife to carry in the pocket, doesn't take up a ton of space. And those handles house Benchmade's axis lock. This crossbar mechanism is very strong. It's fidget friendly, as you can see, but more importantly than that, the closing action is finger safe. Your fingers never get into the path of the blade as you use the knife, and it's just a strong backup to that strong blade itself. It's also an ambidextrous locking mechanism, which combined with dual thumb studs and that reversible pocket clip there means this is 100% lefty friendly out of the box too, or for use with your offhand if you are a righty. So in this form factor, you've certainly got a hard-working knife and a fancier looking knife, but they've also kind of split the personalities of this design with a couple other variants as well, a blue collar and a more fancy version. For a few bucks less, you could get the 940-2 that comes with G10 handles and that same S30V blade. It looks similar to this. This is the mini version though, we'll get to that shortly. Or for a good chunk more, about $315, you can get the 940-1, equally as kind of well established at this point. We've got carbon fiber handles, so it's even lighter in the hand than the aluminum versions. Same kind of sculpted pattern to the outside though, and open-backed construction with blue backspacers. Now that open back construction will give you one advantage. It's gonna be easier to keep clean in kind of rough and dirtier environments, of course. And then you've got an upgrade in blade steel here, S90V, for a lot more edge retention and a even more aggressive stonewashed finish going on. Now, if you're worried about the S90V maybe being a bit too hard to sharpen, that's where Benchmade's US warranty comes in. They call it their Life Sharp service, and they will sharpen this blade up for as long as you own the knife, and everything else will be warranted for life as well. Now, the success of the 940 series has led to not just new variants, but new additions to the platform. Recently, the 9400, the 940 Auto, essentially, available in the classic green aluminum with purple titanium construction, black or stonewashed S30V blades. These run about $280, $279 for this black bladed version right here. Gets an upgrade to the split arrow pocket clip as opposed to the flat clip on the standard model. And instead of the ambidextrous axis lock, you get a push button automatic mechanism right there. It does come with a spine safety that'll keep that button from accidentally depressing, but slide it back, hit the button, and that blade is ready to rock. Furthermore, you can also slide that spine safety up in the open position as well, which will prevent the button from being depressed and the blade from closing accidentally. Nice little added safety feature there. We've also now got the 945, the mini Osborne. It is available in the classic green and purple colorway, although instead of the closed back, we have purple barrel spacers on that version. There's also this one right here, the BK1 with G10 handles, black S30V blade just under 3 inches long, and blue liners and blue barrel spacers on this one. These knives maintain the classic profile of the 940 just on a more smaller scale, a more city-friendly scale, some might say. Price-wise, they're not too much cheaper. This is about $207 for this 945 BK1 right here. So if you got the space in your pocket and you're able to carry a bigger knife, there's definitely more value in the larger versions. But if you like or need or prefer that smaller blade size, you've got an option here too. The cool thing about the 940 series, whether the big or the little version, is there's a lot of aftermarket support too. Mods, scales, different parts you can use to upgrade. But if you don't want to mess with the aftermarket stuff, you can get some fancier versions from Benchmade themselves. This is a gold class mini Osborne that's available right now for $700. You've got a Damasteel blade, fat carbon handles, anodized aluminum bolsters, floating back spacer, lot of cool extra appointments, and limited in nature. Most gold class knives don't stick around forever, so this is one of those designs that you'll see more of over time, but if you see one you like, you'll want to grab it. So I've told you the things that make up the 940 series, but the thing with it is, this knife is kind of a sum, or it's more than the sum of its parts, I should say. The 940 just has this kind of intangible quality that makes it special. And I think that's part of the reason why it's hard to imitate this knife today. We've seen very few knives try to take on its distinctive shape, apart from one notable exception we'll get to here next. So how do you compete with this knife? Well, I've gathered some things here today that I think have a little something special too. Similar form factor, even if not quite the same blade shape, but a hardworking, yet more gentlemanly or more fancy knife design. Together in one, refined but hardworking. Let's see what there is, and you let me know what you think of the options right here. Now, we're gonna start with one of the only, I think, affordable alternatives to the Benchmade 940, and that's the CRKT Facet, which is designed by Ken Onion and comes in just under $50 right now. And as you can see, we've got a very distinctive alternative take on the 940's blade shape right here. I mean, this blade shape on the 940 is so distinctive and so well established. I think a lot of folks have been, I don't know, maybe scared to try and go toe-to-toe with it. Well, there's one thing Ken Onion isn't, it's scared. And he's given us something here that I think makes a compelling take. And like I said, $50 for this knife. It has a D2 blade for good edge retention, great edge retention at this price point, I should say. You still have a sturdy blade here, not a super slicey thing, a bit more into that, hard working yet slim nature. Stainless steel handles with a frame lock, so you do lose the ambidextrous use and you lose the finger safe quality of the axis lock here, but at that $50 price point, some sacrifices must be made. This is an assisted opening knife as well, with a torsion bar spring assist that is reliable and fast every time you use that flipper tab. Single position deep carry pocket clip here. Now, in addition to the standard model, CRKT couldn't just leave it at that, and they came out with some premium alternatives as well. Slotting a bit higher than the standard 940, we've got some limited edition Italian-made versions of the Facet, coming in about $275 right now. And the build quality on these is fantastic. The 3.5-inch blade is M390, so more edge retention than your standard 940, but maybe not quite as much as the 940-1 with its S90V blade. And titanium handles with some really cool patterning. This is the viral version. We've got milled hash marks on the front, facets milled into the sides with their own decorative bits, really fancy pivot collar, or pivot I should say, on the front and the back. The pocket clip is a bit fancier. You've got more going on there. And as you can see here, it is a liner lock, but with a really nice wide lock bar section right there. And that's pulled from the Ken Onion Customs that this was based on. This version also features ball bearings and no assist, so you've just got that snappy ball bearing action to work for you each time. Very, very cool knife, and I think definitely can go toe-to-toe with the 940. Beyond that, we have to look at some slightly different blade shapes, I think, to find a worthy 940 competitor. The first may be surprising to some of you, and that's actually a Gerber. It is the Savvy. Their US-made knife from their Reserve program. It's, well, let me hold up the, instead of the two together, let me hold it up against the 940. You've got a similar size, similar price, $200 for the aluminum version right here. And you have that aluminum construction and a marbled carbon fiber version for about $250. So each one of these is less expensive than the aluminum or carbon fiber versions of the 940. They both come with 20 CV steel, so better edge retention than the base model, but not quite as much as the S90V. But it's got the refinement, it's got the hard use characteristics. We've got oversized washers here around the pivot, which lend this crossbar lock a very stable feel. And you've got a reversible pocket clip to maintain the ambidextrous use. You've got the crossbar lock as well for the same thing. And you may be thinking, but it's only got a single-sided thumb stud. So that's true. This is, however, reversible. So you can set this up for left-hand use. Not that it's going to be able to use that thumb stud on both sides at the same time. However, because you can wrist flick this, that's a little bit less of a concern, fortunately, if you have to use it on the side the thumb stud's not on. But there you go. I'll hold up the carbon fiber versions for a second as well. And some folks out there said, oh, they're ripping off the 940 when they came out with the Savvy. No, I don't think that's the case. In fact, I'd argue that's definitely not. But you can definitely see they live in the same neighborhood. Very, very cool comparison, I think. Next up, how about the ProTech Malibu, which is a knife that could almost star in its own episode of Beat the Icon at this point. But this is somewhat of an interesting comparison, I think, as well. They're about the same price. They start at about $210. They've got aluminum handles, and either this Wharncliffe or a reverse tanto blade shape can be had. Similar sizes, as you can see. Also finger safe, thanks to the button lock mechanism right here. And even though it is not lefty friendly, it is usable in the left hand. However, single position pocket clip in this case, so you won't be able to flip that around. You do see something that you don't see on the Benchmade out of the box at least, and that is a deep carry pocket clip. Also, because this is a deep carry clip, they've gone the extra step and inset the clip into the handle and used flush mounted screws so that nothing's gonna snag if you go to re-pocket this knife, which if you do switch to a deep carry clip on your 940, could happen. Might not be a big deal at all, but it is a possibility. But build quality, I'd say, is right up there with the 940 on this Malibu. It has the same kind of special yet hard-working feel to it. The action is great. You can get steels like MagnaCut, which this particular version here has right now. So some more interesting choices than is currently offered in the Benchmade lineup. Let's go super premium for the next one. Just because I don't often get a chance to talk about Rockstead, how about the RYO, or RYO? Not sure how it's pronounced actually. This is a $1,900 knife. Let's hold up the fanciest 940 so it has a fighting chance against it. The Rockstead is definitely in a league of its own, but it maintains a similar form factor, similar enough, I would say. Hard-working, exceptionally well-built platform here. I mean, this is a knife that feels incredibly solid in the hand. The blade is about 3 1/4 inches long, maybe 3 1/8. ZDP 189 steel with a mirror polished convex grind. So masterfully done. Not just the precision of that grind, but the fact that they were able to do a mirror polish this precisely is absolutely stunning. The grind line and the plunge line is perfect. The edge itself is perfect. No waviness to that whatsoever. Just a league of its own for sure. The pocket clip is spine mounted and it tucks out of the way when you want to push that forward, which is kind of interesting. It is finger safe, but it's not quite two-hand usable, or not, it's not quite one-hand usable when you want to close it, because you don't have kind of that same free-floating quality that the Axis lock comes with. This is more of a deliberate thing, but just listen to the way it releases from the handle. That detent pop is so satisfying in use, and everything about this just screams quality and screams solidity as well. You're definitely going to pay the price for it though, as mentioned. Next up, how about the WE-Knife Vision R? I think this is kind of an interesting take right here. Price on this is about $263, so a little bit more than your standard 940. You are getting 20 CV steel, so upgraded materials there, and you're getting titanium for the handle, so another upgrade in materials there. You've also got a finger safe lock with the, they're calling it the Super Lock here. It is spine mounted, so easily used with either hand. You've also got, like the Rockstead, a spine mounted pocket clip, so works the same in the left or the right hands right there. Definitely has a hard-working feel to it. Everything about it feels nice and solid. Blade shape, some similarities there with this kind of modified Wharncliffe, maybe even modified sheep's foot going on, depending on how you want to qualify it. A little less finger guard protection, but more knuckle clearance. You could use this for some food preppy type stuff or any other kind of surface work where you're scoring or cutting along a surface underneath. Certainly feels premium. I think build quality wise, you've got something here that can go toe to toe. Features wise, you've got some similar things going on, even if the actual lock itself is different. What do you folks think? Next up, we'll look at another button lock knife, and that's the Kizer Cormorant. Now this knife is available with a titanium handle, this one right here. Unfortunately, we didn't have one of those in stock on the day we were filming this video, so I'm showing you our KnifeCenter exclusive version. Unfortunately, out of stock at the moment as well, with linen micarta handles and a 4V blade. But you can get this with a titanium handle, frag patterned, and a 20 CV blade steel for less than a 940, $179 for that version. Size-wise, they match up a little bit smaller, usable edge a little bit less, but not by a ton. You've got finger safe operation with the button lock. You've got an inset and flat head screwed deep carry pocket clip, which is reversible. So this, unlike the Malibu, is more ambidextrous and more in line with the standard 940. Blade shape, something along similar lines there, although on this particular one we're dealing with a hollow grind as opposed to the flat grind. So a little thinner behind the edge, maybe not as stout. But what this has that the 940 doesn't is 2 extra ways to open the knife. With the 940, you can open it with your thumb, using the thumb studs, or any finger using the thumb studs. You can also use the wrist flick. On this knife here, we've also got this flipper tab for conventional flipping and this front flipper for front flipping as well. And both of those are integrated very seamlessly. Now, does this knife have kind of the same elegant profile of the 940? I'd say that's maybe a little arguable. For another Kizer that maybe matches up even better, check out the Genie. Also available in a titanium version, also wasn't in stock on the day we were filming this video. But you can get that version, the titanium version, with S35 VN steel for $158. Or you can get this more affordable version with 154 cm steel for about 75 bucks. And in fact, maybe I should have talked about this when we were talking about the Facet up front, because this is getting pretty close to the 940 blade shape, a little further away than the Facet, but we've also got the same kind of sleek, more elegant shape compared to some of the other knives we've looked at today. Now, what you don't get here is a finger safe lock. We've just got the liner lock mechanism there. We do have a deep carry clip though, flush mounted screws, but not inset into the handle. So tiny bit of snag potential there, but shouldn't be too bad. We've got two opening methods here, your blade cutout and a front flipper. And I'm never the best at front flippers, but there you go. It works pretty well. Blade shape, like I said, similar, 154 cm steel on this, a good basic steel. The S35VN and the titanium version, pretty much in the same ballpark as your S30V on the 940. But the geometry here feels a little bit more efficient, a little bit slicier, but it still doesn't feel dainty. You've got enough spine thickness there to back up that blade quite nicely. Next up, I want to talk about Spyderco, and this is where I think you can really start to see, at least in my opinion, that thing I was talking about earlier, where the 940 is more than the sum of its parts, because this first knife on paper is kind of using the same parts, shall we say, but doesn't quite feel right. It's a good knife, but it just doesn't quite feel like a 940 competitor to me, and that's the Smock. The knife comes in about the same price as a standard 940, about 213 bucks, with an S30V blade, reverse tanto or modified sheep's foot style blade. You've also got S30V steel, same as the standard 940, ambidextrous use with the button operated compression lock there. You've even got a little extra in the flipper tab too. But to me, it really just, it lacks that refined profile that the 940 is known for. This Smock doesn't feel like a gentlemanly thing so much. So even though on paper, this ought to be Spyderco's 940 competitor, I would say the Kapara hits those marks even better. This knife comes in at about 246 and some change. So splitting the difference with slightly more biased towards the budget side of the standard 940, but splits the difference between the two versions there. Carbon fiber handles for a bit of an upgrade, S30V steel, same as the 940. Full flat grind here, modified sheep's foot profile, 3.6 inches long. Definitely a little bit slicier than your 940 blade geometry. Still enough thickness there to have plenty of strength for most uses, I would say. This definitely has the refined quality, and it has the strength thanks to the compression lock there, which is usable by lefties, but is definitely a right-hand biased lock. So maybe not quite as ambidextrous as the 940, but just as finger safe, as you can see, which is nice. And a reversible wire pocket clip, almost fully deep carry there too. So you can carry it on either side just as easily. This is a bit of maybe an underrated knife in Spyderco's lineup, and I think, in my mind anyway, a pretty compelling alternative to something like the 940. Now, last but not least, I've got a couple knives with more, shall we say, conventional blade shapes, more drop point-esque. And when I was putting this list together, it was kind of hard for me to accept a lot of drop point alternatives to the 940, because even though you could get fancy, hard-working combination that the 940 has, again, there's just something about the unique blade shape on the 940 that gives it its character. There were two knives that had enough other things going for it where it felt like a good comparison. The first is the ArtisanCutlery Andromeda. Comes in about 200 bucks, so a little bit less than your standard 940. The steel is S35VN, and the handles are titanium. It feels special. It's got that same long, narrow profile. It's got that same hard use feel, but certainly, as you can see, a much fancier feel as well. Now, if you want a more budget version of this knife, you can get it with a G10 handle, and I believe the steel on those is RPM 9 for about 55, 56 bucks for those versions, a little bit over 50 in any case. You still get powder metallurgy at that price point. So if you're looking for another budget alternative to the 940, that one could be the case, but It does start to feel a little bit less special, which is the thing that kind of put the titanium version over the top for me as a 940 competitor. But anyway, this is a Ray Laconico design, and you kind of can see his signature style in this knife for sure. Single position pocket clip, so it's not left-hand carry friendly. The lock is a button lock that is usable for a lefty, but again, without the pocket clip, it's sort of a mixed bag. It is finger safe and fidget friendly, and you've got dual thumb studs there to open it. Feels really solid. What do you folks think? And finally, in my mind, the knife on this table that is furthest away from the 940 on paper, but still makes a little bit of sense, is the newly released SOG One-Zero XR. This is a bit heavier of a knife than the 940, a bit broader in character, but this has enough specialness to it and enough similarities too that I'm throwing it in here. It comes in just under 300 bucks, so priced more in line with the 940-1. We've got aluminum handles here with S35 VN steel and a lot of nice finishing, nice attention to detail here. The drop point is about 3 1/4 inch long, or maybe just under that. Two-tone finish that feels really nice, nicely finished spine. Very cool polished back spacer on this knife. Aluminum handles, these are blue. There are a couple different colors right now. The white especially looks really good too. And a reversible tail mounted pocket clip there, deep carry. So no screws to get in the way there for sure. We've also got SOG's XR lock. Their take on the crossbar lock feels excellent. And it even does something that the Benchmades don't do. The Benchmade's Axis lock does not do. And that is when you pull that lock bar back, it's acting on the tang of the blade to actually push it out, start moving the motion, as you can see right there. So as you go to use it, the actual motion of pulling back the lock indeed helps you open that blade. So you've got the ambidextrousness, you've got the finger safeness going on, you've got a good feel in the hand, you've got a fancy / hard-working vibe, both in the same thing. Ultimately, I think earns it its place on this list. But as with this and with everything else on this list, that's where the comments section, that's where you folks watching this video come in. What do you think of these comparisons? Do any of them hold a candle to the Benchmade 940? Do any of them beat this iconic knife? And if there's something else that didn't make this list that you think deserves to, would love to hear that as well. Let me know what you think. Now, if you want to get your hands on any of these knives, we will have links in the description. Those will take you to KnifeCenter.com, where of course we have our Knife Rewards program in place as well. So when you're buying one of these knives, you get to earn some free money to spend on a future one, which is always nice. That's it for this episode of Beat the Icon. If you have any suggestions for future installments of this series, let me know which icons you would like to see compared to the competition down below. That's it for now. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center, signing off. See you next time.